unfortunately, is that the real momentum of what has been triggered in 2011 was not appreciated or understood at the time. And this is why we have the chaos that we have today. I think that the situation at that time, the actions, let's say, taken at that time were such that although a strategy started to be formed, as one could understand from a day-to-day basis, there was no real exit policy that had been thought about and even less agreed upon. So we have the situation today. Once that was dissolved and removed, then a free float of all these interests, as we are seeing now, could only result in chaos. So what, as I said, what we are seeing now is the result of, I believe, a lack of proper thinking and consideration in the actions that were taken in 2011. One sees what I have said is that I did not believe that a violent armed solution was the solution for Libya at the time. I could see what was happening at the time, that Gaddafi was under pressure to change. I know that for years they have been trying to change. They were also forming and writing a new constitution at the time. So the process was there. How sincere or not that process was, I cannot judge. But the reality was that at the time I felt that much more political pressure on Gaddafi would have pushed him into reforms that were being talked about at the time in Libya. So this was not new. So at the time, they were talking about reforms and going back to democracy, forming parliament, election, by the people, etc. So these were things that were on the cards. Again, I cannot judge the sincerity of the statements one used to hear at the time, but one used to hear those statements. What I said was that Gaddafi should heed what his people are saying. At the time, the people were saying, listen, we want more freedom of action. And I believe that, and I believed really that with dialogue, which is always difficult with characters of the type, but again, this is politics. With dialogue, one could have made progress without having the results that we're having today. The reality is that the situation at present is in such a turmoil, okay, where from what I understand, and I don't have a direct line with anybody in Libya at the moment, but from what I understand from the media and from people who come from Libya and talk about what they think is happening there, is that there are also shifting in allegiances at the moment. And what we are having is an Islamic front and the anti-Islamic front. Okay. Many people say that Al-Qaeda is leading the first one, which is bad news for Malta. Okay, and this is the lack of security that I'm talking about. The people from Zintan seem to be in the lead of the second one. These were the rebels in the time of Gaddafi, who are now holding Saif al-Islam prisoner. Now, what are the deals that are being negotiated? I wouldn't know, and I cannot therefore say whether there is one particular group or not. Again, I believe that Malta has a direct interest in what is happening in Libya. And that, as I said, firstly, from the security standpoint, and secondly, from the economic standpoint. And I would like to see our government take a more proactive role, not by involving himself in whatever is happening in Libya, but by trying to generate a spirit of dialogue that needs to be generated. But here again, I mean, we have to be very careful, because when we talk about dialogue in Libya, it isn't a question of people getting around the table, but it's a question of hard negotiating, you know, with the various factions and bringing them piece by piece together, like building a jigsaw puzzle. Malta should have put her interests on the line, even in 2011. The people who were running Malta at the time should have foreseen the issues, because they should have had a much better understanding of the Libyans than the people who were really calling the shots, should have foreseen the outcome of what was happening then, and should have made it clear that there are risks to Europe, and especially there are risks to Malta, and that these should be safeguarded. I feel that nothing of the sort took place. I even doubt how much the Maltese government at the time was involved in the decision-making process about Libya. No, the reality is that while I was in government, I never had any business in Libya. After what happened in 2004, and I went to the backbench, I set up a consultancy, and I used to have some consultancy business in Libya, but not direct business as such. So these various stories of big contracts in construction and things like that are all lies.